But let's begin with the big game tonight, guys.
Game 2.
Game 2. Jason, I haven't seen you since game 1. I was saying this morning, and I want to talk about the adjustments the Cavs have to make in this game. But something I said this morning when Dustin and I were talking about this, and I'm curious your take. Donovan Mitchell seems to be playing with no swagger.
Yeah.
I think it's missing. I don't know what's happened. We can make the injury excuses, lack of confidence, whatever. I'm used to Donovan Mitchell being on the court, and it's like superstar. That light is not flashing right now. And he is playing without that swag. To me, whatever. It's missing? Am I right? And if so, why?
I don't know why. I tend to agree.
But it is accurate, you think?
I saw something. I meant to look this up. He had like the 4th or 5th highest usage rate. Did you see this?
In the second half, he had the 5th highest
Yeah, somebody
usage rate.
put it in our text chat, no?
Yeah, he had the 5th highest usage rate in the second half in their Game 1 loss to Detroit.
Yeah, that can't continue. And I thought it was smart of him to go public with his gripes about the free throws, because usually there's a trickle-down effect.
Yeah, well, go to the basket. You'll get some free throws.
He has been. He's been going to the basket. He's not getting a lot of calls. But when you do that, a lot of times you tend to get more calls. And JB even yesterday said.
But Mike gave us a stat that he's going to the basket a lot less.
He is.
Yesterday or in game 1?
In this playoffs, he's only averaging 11.7 drives per game, which is 3 down from his regular season stats and ranks 22nd in the NBA.
Well, I'd like to see
his
drives number from game 1. It felt like he was getting to the basket.
I think early he was, but then it just kind of stopped.
He took 2 free throws.
So in game 1, he had 10 shots in the paint.
Yeah.
Only 1 was in the restricted area. 9 were in that floater kind of long mid-range area. I went back and I watched those 10 field goal attempts. 2, I think he had a gripe on that there was contact. 8 of them, and once again, Donovan's an elite shot maker. He can make these shots that windmill gather.
Right. Yeah.
He does that to avoid contact, right? When you windmill gather over somebody and you go into the floater, that means you're not taking it to the rim. You're not exploding up. You're not initiating that contact. Yeah. I thought he had a gripe on 2 of those 10 field goal attempts.
Yeah.
The other 8, he was either fading away. He did a little spin move around Asar Thompson, who, by the way, Asar Thompson is an elite perimeter defender.
Yeah.
He finished 3rd in Defensive Player of the Year voting for a reason.
Yeah.
Donovan doesn't have the size or the length or the athleticism advantage over Asar Thompson, which is why you fade away in those situations. But if Donovan's going to complain about getting fouls, it's hard to – I see where he's coming from, but I thought 2 of those 10 field goal attempts in the paint in Game 1 were issues where he had a chance to get a call and he didn't. The other 8, 80% of those –
Were they borderline, or should any of them have been obvious calls?
Is
this one of them?
No, this is just all his highlights from Game 1, but like
There's no foul there.
He's fading away there. You're not going to call
Yeah,
you're running away from contact. Or not running away from contact, but you're avoiding contact. This ends up being a 3-point shot in this play. I'm not sure exactly which video Anthony
Harden
pulled up. And if you go to there's a Mitchell highlight. This is just the game highlights.
Yeah.
You pull up the Mitchell highlights, you can see he kind of runs in and out. But long story short,
yeah. They're not getting screwed by the refs.
No,
fans whining. I get what you're saying. The players should bring that up because the fans whining about it is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Detroit was a much more aggressive team. That's why they got more calls.
And Donovan did say when he started his whole rant on that, he started by saying, do not take this out of context. We did not lose because of the refs.
Right, 100%.
And Kenny Atkins did the same thing. We did not lose Game 1 because of the refs. They lost Game 1 because they went cold from 3. They had 20 turnovers. They let the 31 points off turnovers for Detroit. And when they needed a couple stops, they played a deep drop coverage, which I hope they'll change, and we'll get to the adjustments in a second. And Cade Cunningham was able to dissect their defense, find Jalen Duren on 3 straight possessions for easy dunks. That's why they lost. It wasn't the free throws.
Is James Harden playing too much iso ball?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, he's got he felt like a lot of his turnovers were just carelessness in Game 1. But, I mean, this is a recurring theme going back to the
it's the whole postseason.
So we'll see. We'll see tonight if he's cleaner with the ball, if he makes better decisions. I mean, my thing is, like, that's probably about as bad as the Cavs can play. It was a tie game with 5 minutes left. They were on the road. They played terrible. And I turned to the guy next to me. I'm like, they're going to win this game, aren't they? With like 2 minutes left in the third quarter. I'm like, they're going to find a way to win this game. And I thought going in they were going to lose the game.
Yeah.
But they were so bad. Like, they were really bad. They were bad with the ball. And this goes back to the Toronto series. I thought the way that Toronto could beat them is turn them over and the Cavs don't make their threes. Well, that's what happened in Game 1. That's a recipe for the Cavs in any series is if they're not making shots, if they're not making threes, they're going to have a hard time winning.
But my counter to that, Jason, would be they've now lost 4 of their last 6 games in the playoffs.
Yeah.
they've played, maybe not their worst game, but they have played average or below pretty much in the last 6 games.
Yeah.
And I could argue Cade Cunningham could shoot way better. I mean, he was like
fair.
6 of 19 in the game.
That's fair.
And he's their best player. So, like, there's just, yes, like, I think if the Cavs and Pistons both play their best basketball over the next 6 games, the Cavs will win the series. But I have less confidence in that the Cavs are going to do that, though.
We talked about it yesterday. They've been down double digits in the first
Yeah, you
quarter,
can't
or at
keep
least the
doing
first
that.
half in 4 consecutive playoff games, and they found a way to win 2 of those 4.
Right.
But on the road against a team like Detroit, being down 18 in the first quarter, that's just putting you in such a difficult spot where you have to play basically perfect basketball for the next 3 quarters to find a way to win, and they weren't able to do it in game 1.
Jarrett gets hit with a couple quick fouls. That screws up the rotation. There were some goofy rotations.
Really goofy.
It was a bad Kenny game.
And Kenny tried to explain afterwards that, like, coming off the game 7, he thought guys were going to be tired, and he was trying to give them. He was trying to expand the rotation a little bit. But, like, these games are coming every other day.
Yeah.
So you got to go.
Yeah.
And so
both teams have the same schedule.
Right.
So suck it up. Let's go.
So I don't think you're going to see some of the Keon Ellis, Thomas Bryant rotations that we saw in game 1 that were. It was goofy.
Yeah.
And I get,
especially Thomas Bryant, but
I get
he played because of Allen.
But again, why I thought he sat Allen for too long. Like
I did too.
You know,
I mean, he got the 2 quick fouls. Jarrett had 2 fouls before I was to my seat. I sat down like, where's Jarrett? He's already out of the game.
He had 3.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you're right.
3.
He had 3.
Yeah.
He had 3 fouls before I got to my seat with like
No,
4 minutes into the game.
It was 5 minutes into the game. He got his 3rd foul.
And I sat down and he was already out of the game.
Yeah, that was.
So when you have 3 fouls early like that, you do have to be careful with monitoring minutes.
Right,
but I hear you. You're not wrong.
If Dustin brought this point, it was a good point yesterday. If you're not going to play him, like what do you say? You're saving him to not foul out, but you're not playing him.
Well, if you're going to save him in the first half, play him more than 12 minutes in the second half. They only played half of the second half. They opted to go smaller to close, so they had more spacing.
Yeah.
Speaking of adjustments for game 2 in particular, I think there's 3 things I'm looking for the Cavs. 1, you mentioned earlier with James Harden.
Yeah.
His usage rate, part of the reason Donovan's was so low,
Yeah.
especially in the second half of game 1, is James Harden's was in the 35-plus range.
And it seems like, Mike, he's not taking great he's not getting easy shots.
No, and Detroit's a good defensive team.
Yeah.
And the James Harden that plays that heliocentric kind of basketball worked when James Harden was 28, 29 years old, when he was winning MVPs in Houston.
Yeah.
Even 5 years ago in Philadelphia and parts of his stretch with the Clippers, he was able to operate an offense against a really good defense when there's perfect spacing. Right now, with the way Detroit's playing defense, they're not respecting Dean Wade. They're not respecting Jarrett Allen. They're not respecting Evan Mobley's jump shot from beyond the arc.
Right.
He can play that heliocentric, spread out, I'll go ISO when there's proper spacing, but Detroit is compacting the paint, and it's just limiting his ability. So, A, get more ball movement, less James Harden ISO ball, which also allows Donovan to get more into the flow of the offense, and he becomes less of a 1B, more of a 1A. Defensively, they played this.
Just to follow up on that real quick. You know, you mentioned they're clogging up the paint because they don't respect anybody but Donovan and James to shoot the ball right now. When James first got here, especially when Mobley was out, we were seeing James to Jarrett for like alley-oops, for so many baskets, and we're just not seeing that
it's
at all.
Defenses are just literally clogging the paint.
Taking that away.
Yeah.
I have a stat that will give you my 5 stats of how well Detroit, not just in game 1, but even against Orlando and all season, has game planned around allowing that slip to be opened. That slip is not there. That is something that Detroit intentionally tries to take away. And if Jarrett Allen's not getting those rolls, if you're not throwing the ball to Jarrett Allen in the post, he's just clogging everything up for everyone else. Now, that's not a Jarrett issue per se. It's just the kind of player he is. And if they're not going to allow that pass, what's the counter? What does Kenny and Johnny Bryant and Hendry and all those guys have to get Jarrett Allen involved offensively if that role isn't there in the pick and roll?
All right, so what's the adjustment number 2?
They played a deep drop in game 1, and we saw it kill them late in the game. It was 93-93, and they went deep drop. Cade got a head of steam downhill, hit Durham for those 3 dunks in a row.
Yeah.
You play deep drop coverage when you have a non-mobile big man, right? When you feel uncomfortable with your big man switching onto a guy in the perimeter and staying in front of them. Evan Mobley's a defensive player of the year. Jarrett Allen's one of the better rim protectors and one of the agile, fleet-footed bigs in all of the NBA. I'm not saying they're Wemby, and I'm not saying they're going to shut down Cade Cunningham if they get switched on to him in one-on-one.
Right.
But if you're going to drop and allow Cade, who's 6'9", to get a head of steam going downhill, 12 feet from the basket with Dean Wade on his back hip, it's going to be damn near impossible. And you can see a couple of these here. Look how deep Jarrett Allen's. You're letting him walk into open shots. I'd rather have Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley get up, just like the Pistons are doing to the Cavs on defense when they have Jalen Duren, who's getting up and forcing an extra pass out and then making the Cavs offense reset. Don't sit back so deep. Get up. Force it out of Cade's hand and let someone else beat you. It can't be the Cade Cunningham show. And I know he didn't have a great game 1. He had 45 points in game 6. He's one of the better scorers in the entire NBA. You can't give him that much space. I'd rather take my chances with Dennis Jenkins, Duncan Robinson, Tobias Harris. If anyone else wants to be on the perimeter, so be it, but I'm not going to let Cade Cunningham do that.
Do you guys think if they're going to defend that way, where, okay, Jarrett, you switch on to him in that situation, because they're going to do that. They're going to run that all the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Primary offensive
So if
play.
you're going to switch anyway, does it make more sense to have Jalen Tyson instead of Dean Wade out there? Because if you're going to switch anyway, you're not – I know Wade is a better defender on him than Tyson is. But if they're switching anyway –
Well, they didn't switch.
Well, no. But if they take your suggestion and start switching, then does it make sense to have Tyson out there more?
We're going to do who should start in the second hour.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
And I'll give you my answer now, but yeah, I would start Jalen Tyson tonight.
Okay.
And I'll explain more why later.
All right. Yeah.
Third adjustment, last adjustment. Merrill's probably not going to play tonight, which means Tyson's going to get more minutes whether he starts or not. And on the issue of Jalen Tyson, on the topic of Jalen Tyson, I've said this before, I'll say it again, I will continue to die on this hill.
Can't stand around.
He needs to be involved in the offense. And whether it's Jalen Tyson, whether it's Evan Mobley, whether it's Jarrett Allen, whether it's someone else besides the guards, because Donovan's going to be hounded by Asar Thompson again, and they had Cade Cunningham on James Harden.
Yeah.
Those two matchups, difficult matchups in their own right. Asar Thompson's a monster. Cade Cunningham is 4 inches in length on James. Let someone else initiate the offense and use those two guys, not as decoys, but get them moving off ball, make Asar, make Cade chase you around screens. If nothing else, it's going to tire him out, and you're going to get better looks. I can't stand the way the Cavs stood around on offense in game 1 and let one guy try and take on 4 guys who are packed in the paint.
It was way too much.
Whether it's Tyson, and if he's in the lineup, it could be Tyson. Let Mobley do it. I thought Mobley's best offensive possessions came off inverted pick and rolls in game 1.
Yeah.
Use more of that stuff to get easier looks for James and Don. Those are my adjustments for game 2.
Jason, what do you think about what he said? He's on the money?
Yeah, I think that was great. I think I would still start Dean. I know a lot of people don't like that, but just for the defensive presence, I hear what you're saying with the switch and everything. You still have a better defender on the floor. And just
for whoever Dean's picking up in that situation.
Because even if you switch, you can still switch back. Like that.
And if you do switch, then Duren's on Tyson as opposed to Duren on Wade. But whatever, we could get that.
Can Wade stop Duren, really?
It depends, and it's all ancillary.
If Duren,
you can switch back. There's a bunch of other ways to help counteract it. But
well, it's going to be interesting to see because Sam Merrill, I mean, if it's a hamstring injury, he's not playing in the rest of the series probably.
Depends on the severity, but
I'd be surprised if he plays tonight for what I heard.
Games every other day, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough.
So, I mean, he's a guy who's been playing, 15 minutes a game?
More. He played 23 in game 7.
Okay.
Only played 7 in game 1 before he got hurt. But
right, but so I mean, does that mean
Keon Ellis.
Is Keon Ellis going to, you said maybe I thought Keon Ellis gave better minutes than certainly Andrew Bryant did.
Thomas Bryant.
Thomas. Where did I come up with Andrew Bryant? Who's Andrew Bryant?
Andrew Bynum.
No, isn't there an Andrew Bryant? And maybe not in basketball.
I'm sure he exists. I'm sure there is an Andrew Bryant.
Andrew Bryant. Let me know where you are. Go ahead. Thomas Bryant. Whatever.
Sam's a big loss. Because when you talk about guys who can make shots, he's one of the few that you can count on to make big shots. So,
although he hasn't been particularly good,
I don't care. I'd still
they still guard him.
Yeah,
when he's out there, they have to guard him.
Right. That's true. Yeah. That's true. And that's going to be more Max Strus because he's one of their best shooters. And, I got to say, I mentioned yesterday, last thing before we take a break and go talk about the Guardians, but I mentioned yesterday that I like Dennis Schroeder out there because he plays with an edge and an attitude. And I said nobody else on the team really plays that way. I'm wrong. Max Strus plays that way. And I have not loved Max Strus at times, but he plays with an attitude also.
He's crazy.
Yeah, he's kind of nuts out there, and I like that. Like I think he and Schroeder are willing to fight guys, and I'm not sure anybody else on this team is willing to do that.
Tyson and Thomas Bryant,
Yeah, Schroeder's nuts, which I like, and I say that as a compliment.
And there's bad blood between
because I'm nuts.
There's legit bad blood between Schroeder and Detroit too.
Good,
legitimate bad blood.
All right.